that. How has COVID affected lending and mortgages?
It's done a few things. There is a lot more scrutiny on employment. With COVID, there were a lot of people who were furloughed. And so in that case, we had to wait until they had their steady income back. We could not use unemployment. Credit score requirements have risen in many cases. So people who we may have qualified prior to COVID, we had to work on getting their credit built back up or get their credit scores up.
That was a big thing.
It was.
That shifted things. As investors changed their requirements, like people that thought they were qualified and good, all of a sudden weren't.
March was probably the craziest month I have seen in my 23 years, just because, everything was changing so quickly. Rates were starting to rise because people did not know what to expect and how to handle it. It has been an adjustment for everybody. Things have calmed down a little bit now. Forbearance, you hear that a lot. And so what lenders have done is they have allowed, the government kind of came through and said, you have got to allow people to skip payments if they need to. And because of COVID, they don't really have to give you any other reason. And so what we've seen are borrowers who probably could make their mortgage payments who called to find out more about it, and then lenders said, well, why don't we just put you in forbearance for 3 or 4 months and then you can skip payments and make them later. That has caused an issue because at first, again, the guidelines have shifted. There are paths to still get people to buy if they catch themselves up right away, and it's not considered a late payment. But I don't think all the education was out there before everybody started to do that, so it made it very tough. And then the final thing, and this is a quirky thing, but we've seen it a lot lately. I had 2 this week that were affected by it, where we had co-signers that were out of state. And typically what that means is you send that closing package to them a day before, they sign it, they overnight it, then we sign on ours. In both instances, UPS overnight is no longer overnight. And UPS just kind of throws their arms up and says, we're going to get it there as soon as we can. So we've had to delay things waiting on UPS packages as well.
There's a lot to unpack there in what you just said, but I guess I'll start with somebody that was employed, then furloughed, and they needed to wait until they were brought back from furlough. I'm also assuming that there were probably plenty of people that while they haven't been furloughed and they are still employed, that they need to take, and this maybe isn't even something that's your role, but they need to take an honest look at what their long-term employment chances are before they decide to make this move as well.
Yes, and we've actually had some that have been impacted by that, where the borrowers still had their job, but they just had a feeling, they were hearing things, and they did not think that their long-term employment looked good, so they halted the process. And understandable. I mean, they've got to be comfortable and make sure they're not getting themselves in a bad position. We have a lot of people who think, well, I'm making unemployment, I'm making the same that way, so I should be fine. And again, that is not, unemployment income is not considered stable.
That's not counted as income?
It's not. It has been a process of making sure that even if they go back and they're not at their full-time hours, if we can qualify them on whatever hours they're currently working, we'll be fine, but we have to have that stability.